I don't do enough talking about the local stuff, but there's a lot of local sports going on. It's March Madness, but also along with the NBA is the NHL hockey. So I want to welcome for the first time, but not the last time, my good friend Cole, local Carolina Hurricanes fan, and we'll go ahead and call you for the sake of this insider. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. Name's Cole, like Kevin mentioned. I am a avid Canes fan and an average hockey knower. So I'm just here to provide my insight and, hoping to provide some insight for all the viewers out there.
Yeah, man. And when you say average hockey knower, that's more than me. So therefore, this is exactly why you're here. So I want to jump right into it. It's been a week for the Carolina Hurricanes. We will start tonight with a 2-1 overtime victory over the Calgary Flames or something. Isn't it Flames?
Yeah, it's Flames.
Over the Calgary Flames. I'll get your opinion on it, you being the expert. I'm not necessarily like a huge fan of how well the Canes have been playing, but let's just start with tonight first. Good things you saw, things you've been seeing for a while that maybe have reared their ugly heads again. And then we'll get into kind of this past week for the Canes.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight was my first time actually seeing Miko Rantanen in person since we got him a couple weeks back. Guy's phenomenal at hockey. I think it's going to take a little bit for them to figure out how they're going to work together. I know Rod keeps shifting lines, trying to find something that works for him, but ultimately, I'm hoping he's just not a rental. I'm hoping we can get him signed, and I think Kevin and I will dive into that a little bit later. But the game was closer than I would have hoped it to be. Calgary is one of those teams that you want to go in there and beat and show your dominance. When we're as good as we are, I think it's a team we can. Something that really stuck out to me was there was 3 minutes and 26 seconds left on the first period clock before they finally recorded a shot on goal. Ultimately, a win's a win, but it should have been a little bit better than it was.
Now, when you say, so is Calgary like, are they like a feisty, scrappy, not good, but they're kind of annoying to play team? Or are they just like really, really bad and you should be beating them 3-0, 4-0, you know?
Yeah, I would say they're an average to bottom tier team. They don't have any superstars that really stand out. You have those teams that maybe aren't great, but you're like, okay, hey, you got to watch out for this guy. Ultimately, what I noticed out of them is they're just massive. Everyone on their team was huge. And the Carolina Hurricanes are not a huge team. We're a fast team. And being that that's the case, I would have expected us to probably to have a few more breakaway chances, be able to advance the puck past them and, outskate them. But I didn't see as much as that as I would have hoped to see.
Is that a matter of aggression or is that more of just like game flow?
I think it's a lot of game flow and just having that sixth sense of, hey, can I sneak away here? Can I not sneak away? I think something the Canes do phenomenally is knowing when to pinch the puck. But at the same time, it's a lot of times our downfall. We'll give up a lot of breakaways by trying to pinch the puck and be an aggressively offensive team. But ultimately, going into it a little bit deeper is I would have liked to see us finish the puck more. And that's probably every game for me this season, last season, the season before. We're great at getting shots on goal. But I think our recent struggles over, the past 3 years have been finishing the puck, scoring when we have an opportunity.
That was one of the things I was going to bring up. The more I watch the Hurricanes, it feels like the Hurricanes are a team. They're like volume shooters. They shoot a lot of shots, and
Hmm.
I get the math. The more you shoot, just the more you'll score. I get the
Right.
math, but I also feel like it feels like you're not setting yourself up for success when you shoot directly at the goalie's chest. Like I'm not quite sure. Again, I get the analytics behind it, but what is this whole thing like? Why does it not seem like shots are actually like they're shooting with purpose? It just feels like they're shooting to just shoot.
Yeah, ultimately, I think a lot of it has to do with what you said. Mathematically, the more you shoot, the more you should score. And I know they're shooting for tips, trying to redirect the shot into the goal. I think it's something we've done better at this year than maybe other years, but it's also to cause chaos, right? If we're getting a rebound, it's creating scoring opportunities. Maybe it's not as much as we'd like to hope, but that's the purpose that I see behind it.
Would you say that the Canes, in comparison to the rest of the league, would you say that the Canes are um, a higher scoring team or middle of the pack, average?
I would say we're average. But I will say that I never go into a game expecting to get outshot.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, I was hoping to find some stats, but I'll have to look into it later, maybe next week. As far as shots on goal and then like goal percentage, that type of stuff, just to
Hmm.
see like where they stand. Cause it does just feel like you'll look up and be like, wow, like you're out shooting them 28-11, but it's 1-1.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where, especially when I watched series against the Rangers or even years back against the Bruins, and it kind of felt they were getting outclassed, and it was like it only takes them 3 shots to make a goal, and it takes us 8. But again, to your point, I mean that might just be the strategy behind it.
Yeah, and I think for me, I love the constant pressure. I love the thought process behind, hey, more pucks on net, one's gonna fall. Because I find myself, on the other side of it sometimes saying, why'd you make that one extra pass? Just shoot the puck. Just shoot the puck. Um, so I think you just kind of got to roll with it, and it's one of those things that damned if you do and damned if you don't.
All right, fair enough. So this week, the Canes, let's see, if we just go through their past week, we'll start with last Saturday. So we'll go a loss to the Maple Leafs 6-3, a loss to the Canadians, that's on the road in Toronto, a loss to the
Hmm.
Canadians, also in Montreal, I assume, 4-0. At home, a 5-2 win against the Sabres. And then on Saturday, a 3-1 loss at home to the Oilers, followed by a 2-1 win in overtime tonight against the Calgary Flames. They are 4-6 in their last 10. Feels like this season, every time I tend to want to watch a game, they lose. Maybe I need to stop watching. But I also haven't watched in a long time. But just every time I'm like looking up, I'm like, oh man, it's another loss. What's going on with them?
Yeah, I think it was tough going into the break. Had a few games slide going into the break. We had four guys actually playing the Four Nations. We had Miko and Aho both playing for Finland, and then Slavin playing for USA, which he might have been the best player in the whole Four Nation face-off, in my opinion. I don't know if that's me being biased, but his presence was known. I think he made a name for himself on the national stage. But we also had Jarvis playing for Canada, so I don't know if there was maybe a little bit of refiguring things out, getting back to your groove. It's always different when you come back from the break, right? Some people come back hot and they have a whole new, viewpoint, and then other teams maybe just still aren't quite clicking whenever they're coming back. Maybe some people went to Cancun, had a little bit too much fun. Never know. But yeah, rolling into Toronto, that 6-3 loss, it was tough. We looked a little bit slow, and I don't know if again that comes down to four of our players being in the Four Nations face-off, or it's just hey, we all rolled back in from vacation late. But it was a tough game to watch, and I want to echo that for Montreal as well. That one was a pain to watch. There was not a whole lot of highlights. I think we got outclassed in every way, and ultimately we got outworked. Never once did I see our guys putting in the effort like they wanted to win. It just seemed kind of like a downhill slide in comparison to Toronto, where we were down 4-0, I think, going into the third, and we came back and made it a 4-3 game before it ended up being the final score 6-3. So just didn't see that will and that drive and that bite that you usually see out of the Hurricanes, because Aho had a quote recently, I think it was yesterday actually, he put it out saying that they want to be a team that has an identity, and that identity is that they work hard, and it's not just, hey, we go to the playoffs, we lose. We want to make a name for ourselves, and that is going to be through hard work. I think it showed a little bit tonight.
That's good. That's good. You talk about Toronto and Montreal, and it's like, okay, well, it's Canada. It's not like it's necessarily around the corner. And you're going to a different country. I don't know if maybe with a lot that's going on politically, if maybe it's a little bit more difficult to traveling in and out. Maybe that has something to do with it, right? There's just a lot going on beyond just like just playing a road game. So, maybe there's something to it as well. One of the things you mentioned that I have noticed over the few years is they are the Hurricanes have always played with a lot of grit.
Hmm.
Um, they are the team that you your schedule and you're like, like there used to be the San Francisco 49ers like 2 years ago and 3 years ago. teams' records the game after playing the 49ers were really bad because they just used to leave you, beat and bruised. And it kind of felt like the Canes, like that's been their identity for a while, is like we're gonna play super fast. We're also gonna be physical and we're gonna work harder than you. And
Yeah.
that right there is gonna get you a lot of wins in the regular season. For Canes fans, because you've seen the success and now you're kind of feeling like, okay, we have a window or we had a window. For Canes fans, what was it? They got swept by the Panthers two postseasons ago. And last year they were down 3-0, but then it was like, oh shoot, they make it 3-2.
Yeah, they
And it
made
was
it
like,
3-2.
and you're like, ooh, and I was locked in. So for Canes fans who are kind of feeling like this season kind of feels like we're moving backwards, what would your sentiments be? Because last year they made a trade, and that's the next thing we're going to get to. But just as far as like, hey, everybody, let's pump the brakes a little bit. What would you say to Canes fans who are kind of in panic mode?
Yeah. So ultimately, I definitely felt better about last year than this year at the start of the season. Start of the season this year, I said, hey, we've lost some pieces. I'm not sure we put them back together the right way, especially having a new GM. I didn't know how this guy was going to handle it. I think so far he's done a phenomenal job. But ultimately, I think we're still in our window, and I think we're going to be in a window for years to come. Re-signing Jarvis makes a big difference, and I think the core values and I don't think we're ever not going to be in a window when we have Rod Brindamore as a coach, personally.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Let's talk about dudes. One of the things that I've noticed that when I look at these teams and I see names with the Mick blanks, the McDavids or the Mick this or the whatever, it's a lot of dudes. And when I hear people talk about the Canes roster, it almost feels like the Canes have like guys, but they don't have like the dudes, right?
Yeah.
There's no Sidney Crosby, there is no, and I think that the Canes, the guy who was supposed to be that Canes dude, the one who was drafted to be the dude, is Andrei Svechnikov, and he's not necessarily being the dude the way some
Yeah.
other people's number 2 overall picks would be. What is something, and I don't, and this is where I don't understand the way I understand the NBA salary cap or the NFL salary cap, the way I understand how trades work and just the positions and like all of that stuff. I don't understand about hockey.
hmm
What is it about? Are the Canes in this position where they are in mediocrity purgatory, where they're not good enough to win a chip, but they're not bad enough to get the dudes needed to win a chip? Um, what say you?
I'm I'm going to say no, and the reason I say that is because we're actually pretty cap healthy currently. We offered a very, very large sum of money to our recent acquisition in Miko Rantanen, and I think our GM has that aggressive mindset of, hey, let's go win one now. But the problem I think with the overall roster is, like you said, you don't have that one star. We don't have that McDavid. We don't have the Crosby or whoever else that may be. But I would say top to bottom, our roster is stronger than majority of the teams in the league. I would say even though we don't have that true number one, we have a ton of B players. So maybe that team's got one B and four D players. We've got 15
Yep.
B players. So I think ultimately our team's healthy, and I think our GM is on the mindset that we need one A player to get us over that hump. And I think the search is for what is going to get us over the hump. And I don't think the Canes are going to back off that anytime soon.
Yeah, it's almost like your point is the Canes are much deeper an entire team. They're a much
hmm
more complete team than some of those teams that have those A players, which is exactly what salary caps are put in place to do. You can go pay for those top dudes, but you're going to pay for it on the back end,
Yep.
or you can allocate your money a little more evenly across the board if that's what they're doing, and kind of have a deeper collection of Bs so that one injury doesn't derail your season, so on and so forth. So that makes sense. What about goalie play? I don't feel like every time I feel like I watch a Hurricanes game, the other team's goalie is better than theirs. I just don't,
Yeah.
some people might say you don't need exceptional goalie play to win all the time. You just need like serviceable. But it always
Right.
seems like And again, it could be because the Canes strategy is shoot it at your chest, but it always seems like they're getting like the opponent is getting exceptional play, and the Canes are really just piecing like finding a guy with a beating heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, a lot of it does go back to our inability to finish a lot of the times. But on the same end, I do have a lot of thoughts in regards to the goalies. Freddie Anderson is a phenomenal goalie if you look at him statistically. He is the quickest to 500, or he has the most wins in the first 500 games in his career, which is not something to be ashamed of. It's a phenomenal statistic to think about. But at the same time, he can't stay healthy. And so where does that put us year after year? Last year I forget what the injury was. I think it was blood clotting issues. And then this year I think he had to have surgery on something else, or maybe I have those backwards. But ultimately, Freddie's missed most of the season. I think he can be phenomenal, but my concerns are more around his health and staying phenomenal. Every time he comes back, you never know if he's going to look the same, what kind of game he's going to have. Now, our younger guy, Pyotr Kochekov, excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. I tried my best there. But I love his grit. I love his mentality. I love his fire and his passion. You're not going to find another goalie that quite has that same drive, and he'll get up in your face. He does not care. He will be that spark for the team if he needs to be. I just don't know if he provides that true number one goalie. Hey, this is somebody we're going to lean on in the playoffs game after game. There's very few guys out there like that. You've got Connor Hellebuck up in, Winnipeg, Jake Ottinger down in Dallas, and then you've got Trosteichen, Sorokin, just name a few. Like those are really your guys that they're going to stand on their head. And that just is what it is. I know the Canes are definitely interested in John Gibson at Anaheim before the deadline here, which would be a huge acquisition for us. It just leads the question for me is who do you send down to Chicago? Do you send down Freddie or do you send down Kochekov? Because honestly, I really don't want to see either of those guys go. If I had to make that decision, it would probably be Freddie just due to health concerns. I would look to trade Freddie away or make him part of that trade back to Anaheim. Just he was there in the past, so it could probably be a good fit for him. But my concerns center around if we do bring in a third goalie that is going to be our true number one, what does that do for our other two? Because I think Kochekov is going to continue to be a phenomenal goalie over the next couple of years, and he's so young. So it's kind of hard to maybe send him back down to the minor leagues when he's really made a name for himself up here with the Canes.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been very informative. This upcoming week, I'm looking at their schedule now. So they're going to Detroit to play the Red Wings on Tuesday, followed by a home game against Boston here on Thursday that I may or may not be at. I'm still trying to determine if I actually want to go. And then Sunday, another home game against the Winnipeg Jets, who are currently kicking ass. So hopefully the next time we talk next week, we will be in better shape. We'll have better things to report. And the trade deadline is Friday? So maybe they'll make a move. Cole, I appreciate you joining me, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.